Good evening. Welcome to Monday, November 13th, 2023, Romulus Community School Board meeting, regular meeting. Call to order at 6:01. Evans,
Present.
Davis,
Here.
Bernard, Wester's present, Piles, McCarthy, and Laster. We have a quorum. Can we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Acceptance of the agenda. Be it resolved that the Board of Education accepts the November 13th, 2023 meeting agenda as presented.
Support.
The motion by Wester, supported by Davis. Davis,
Yes.
Kennard, Evans,
Yes.
McCarthy,
Yes.
Laster,
Yes.
Wester, yes. Piles. Motion approved. Do we have any public comment? Are you ready, Deb?
Rita Hampton?
My name is Rita Hampton, everybody knows. I just have a few things to say. First, I didn't believe the superintendent when he said that sometimes this board is a laughing stock, but we are. I want the board, maybe they should take a ride through or go to door and ask people in the community what they think of them. I have 30 years of teaching, so therefore I have over 5,000 maybe students who are on boards, school boards, or in the teaching profession. I got a call this weekend. If a person has been challenged or accused of something dastardly, of engagement in embezzlement or what, why are they at the meetings? Rita, Miss Rita, isn't this the same woman that took all those classes? Why is she coming back here?
Point of order, President Wester.
Here we go again. I never get a chance to finish.
Please read the comment section where we can, what is to be said during the comments, public comments.
Guidelines for public comment and audience participation. The Board of Education welcomes audience participation at these meetings. These guidelines, which are based on the Board of Education bylaws and policies, are intended to facilitate the orderly conduct of the public comment portion of the Board of Education. The district encourages parents, students, and others to resolve issues at the building level whenever possible with the teacher or building principal or assistant principal. Issues not resolved at the building level may be addressed to the appropriate central office administrator and then, if necessary, to the superintendent. The Board of Education encourages parents, students, and others from addressing the Board of Education on issues that have not been processed in this fashion and will, in such cases, direct the person addressing the Board of Education to the appropriate administrator. Persons wishing to address the Board of Education must complete a public comment form and submit it to the board secretary before the meeting. Forms may not be accepted after the meeting begins. The board president will recognize speakers. Speakers must limit their comments to 3 minutes or less in duration due to the number of persons desiring to address the board. The board president limits the comments to 2 minutes or less. Speakers may not defer any part of their time to others. Speakers are asked to identify themselves by name. Speakers representing organizations or groups should indicate whether their comments represent the official position of those organizations or groups. Speakers should observe the rules of common courtesy. Personal attacks on board members and district employees will not be tolerated. Board members and district employees may request the board entertain complaints against them in a closed session. The public comment portion of the Board of Education meetings does not exceed 30 minutes. Board of Education members may question speakers to gain additional information. However, the Board of Education does not debate public comment items. The Board of Education reserves the right to take any action permitted by law to ensure order at its meetings, including the expulsion of disorderly persons.
Thank you. I will continue on. As I was saying, so when and I want to address that real quick without getting me off my square here. I am a person, a resident of this community, and it's out there. That's the problem. We're delusional. Some people think they can come back and sit down like nothing has happened. I have asked the 3 board members to resign. So let me go on. Why are they still sitting there? Dr. Edmondson is back. So now, Rita, you did all that. What did they do? Why did they fire Dr. Edmondson? I said, that's the elephant in the room. They'll never own up. When board members say, I've had 10 absences, 2 meetings, board meetings a month. If you've been absent over 10 times, that means you've been absent 5 months. And then when they said, I didn't violate anything, and I'm talking about, this is the 2nd time I've been interrupted. I didn't do anything wrong, but what about the people of Romulus who voted for you to be here? And then when you make an announcement and another time, I'm not gonna be here the first 3 months of the new year. What does that mean? You don't really care about kids or take this serious. So now it becomes a joke. I want you to remember, 3 months, I'll say it, 8 superintendents. Dr. Ben was here 13 months before he was terminated. That's all. What did he do? I still think that's a contentious spirit in the room. We will not be able to get anything done. We get 50 questions, 100 questions every board meeting because we can't move on because the board members are still trying to make themselves relevant. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
By the way, there's a roof leaking somewhere. Thank you.
Amanda Haas.
So I promised last week I would be back again to talk. I've come to every meeting, not because I enjoy it. Well, I enjoy it somewhat, but I come to every meeting to see if any progress has been made on the vile things that were done last year at a school within our district. And I was answered in the mentor who had been torturing me taking over my class. I get it, I guess. She does have seniority, I get it, but I don't understand why I wasn't heard, and I'm not the only one who's not being heard. There are dozens of teachers who want to say stuff, but they didn't resign like I did. And you have to listen to us, guys. We're suffering, we have these thoughts, we have these ideas, and we're not being listened to in any possible way. So I won't be coming to any more board meetings since I don't longer work for the district. But please listen to your teachers. We are trying our best for your children. We love these kids. And it's not right. Thank you for everything, and it's been an honor working under Mr. White at the middle school. It's been an honor working for Mr. Parker for the online program. And I appreciate everything that's been done. And the staff at the middle school is amazing. But I appreciate everything that has come forth. But please, please fix it for our kids. The problems. And I do have like details if you need it, but let me know. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. No.
Next on the agenda are presentations. We have an audit report by Joe Verlin of Gabbridge and Company.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I would like to thank the board for the opportunity to be here tonight. And I don't intend to cover every page of the audit report. Hopefully that's not upsetting to anyone. I'm going to go through and cover the highlights, but certainly if there are any questions along the way, don't hesitate to ask. I'm more than happy to answer them. Starting on, if you flip to page 1 of the report, the bound copy of the report, this is the paragraph that matters more than anything else throughout the entire audit. This is where we provide the opinion on the financial statements. Second paragraph down, we wrote, in our opinion, the financial statements present fairly in all material respects the financial position of the school as of June 30, 2023. It's referred to as a clean opinion on your financial statements. Should always be the school's goal to get a clean opinion on your financial statements, but certainly means something to achieve it. It means your finance and accounting team were able to put together financial statements that were verifiable as part of the audit process. So we work with Department of Education, various granting agencies, as well as financial institutions to confirm and verify your numbers. And accordingly, we provided a clean opinion on your financial statements. If you go now to page 6 of the report, we get into the first page of management's discussion and analysis. I would think of this section as being basically the Cliff Note version of the entire audit. It's about 7 or 8 pages of financial highlights. You can see 2-year comparative information to get an idea for some of the trends in your finances. And then there's some narrative explaining reasons for significant changes in your revenues and expenses during the past 2 years. So that first bullet point in the financial highlights section shows that the liabilities exceed the assets of the school by $28.9 million at June 30, 2023. Many school districts are in that exact same position. For the last 8 years now, the schools had to report your net pension liability in addition to your net retiree health care liability or your net OPEB liability. Those are the 2 primary reasons that you're seeing a deficit net position. When we take a look at your assets and liabilities, those 2 liabilities are very significant to the school district. And then when we back off the infrastructure, the buildings and equipment and vehicles and buses and all of those things, there's actually an unrestricted deficit net position of about $66 million. It doesn't look good to see a deficit net position in any category. But the second bullet point down shows that the school had an increase in net position of just under $15 million during the course of the year. Certainly a lot of that had to do with federal relief funds that were received by the school, continue to receive those funds, and those are certainly having a positive impact on the financial condition of the school. Certainly trending in the right direction, and we'll see on the ensuing pages, this is the second consecutive year of improving net position. So back-to-back years that the school is moving forward with regard to its financial position. If a reader of these financial statements asks, is the school better off financially at June 30, 2023 compared to June 30, 2022, this second bullet point says yes, by about $15 million. Third bullet point down shows that the fund balances of the school decreased by about $1 million, $958,000. So the first 2 bullet points are talking about the school on the long-term basis of accounting. So if you purchase a long-term asset, the school capitalizes it and depreciates it over 10, 15, 20 years. The third and fourth bullet point are basically cash basis financial statements. So when we look at your funds, we're looking at cash in versus cash out. So about $1 million more cash went out of the school during 2023 compared to cash in. And the biggest reason for that decrease in fund balance were the capital outlay expenditures of about $4.5 million. So various projects at the schools used about $4.5 million of fund balance. And then that very last bullet point shows the unassigned fund balance of the school's general fund. Your most important fund, your most important element of fund balance is your unassigned fund balance. That's what you have available to cover wages, utilities, supplies, things of that nature. The school had about $2.5 million of unassigned fund balance in your general fund. And if we take that and divide it by the annual general fund expenditures and transfers out, you're about 6% funded. So just over that 5% threshold that the Department of Education expects schools to have. Not too much, not too little. It is trending down to be, it's important to be mindful of that. But then again, a lot of that had to do with capital outlay expenditures. You can see the very last statement in that fourth bullet point shows that the general fund decreased its fund balance by about $1.25 million during the year. If you go down to page 8, we get a look at the comparative revenues and assets and liabilities of the school for the last 2 years. And the very top row, it's always nice to see how your cash and investments are doing. Very far right column, top row, cash and investments were $6.2 million at June 30, 2022, compared to about $8.5 million at June 30, 2023. So your cash and investments are trending up. A couple of reasons for that. The very next row down, you can see your receivables decreased. So your receivables, your grant receivables were collected during 2023. That was certainly benefited your cash position. And then if you look about halfway down the report, you can see your unearned revenue increased from about $630,000 at June 30, 2022 up to $1.75 million at June 30, 2023. That means that the school's receiving grant funds in advance of incurring the expenditures. So that too is driving up your cash balance. And just real quick, your net pension liability, 2/3 of the way down the page in the non-current liabilities section, you can see your net pension liability increased from $34.5 million at June 30, 2022 up to $54.8 million at June 30, 2023. That liability is trending up, but the school doesn't have any control over that. That's basically, it's based on MIPSR's performance. And because your pension assets, or the MIPSR's pension assets, had about a 5% decrease in market value during the most recent actuarial evaluation, that drove up the school's net pension liability. But every district in the state is seeing about a 50% increase in their net pension liability. Just something that you have to report but have no control over. And then 2 rows up from the bottom, your unrestricted net position in 2022 was a deficit of $75 million compared to a deficit of $66 million. So again, it's a deficit, but at least it's trending in a positive direction. If you go now to page 10, we get a look at comparative revenues and expenses for the last 2 years of the school. And about 1/3 of the way down, maybe halfway down, you can see your total revenues in 2022 were $53 million approximately, compared to about $57.2 million for the year ended June 30, 2023. So your revenues are trending up. A lot of that has to do with federal relief funds that the school received during 2023. Your change in net position, 3 rows up from the bottom, very far right column, you can see that the school had about a $12 million increase in your net position during 2022, compared to about a $15 million increase in your net position during 2023. So again, you can see progress being made in that deficit net position, trending from $43.8 million at 2022 up to a deficit of $28.9 million at June 30, 2023. Just a few more pages. If you go to page 19, we get into the fund financial statements of the school. So this, again, is showing what are the immediate resources, or the resources that came in during the course of the most recently completed fiscal year compared to the cash out. And you can see your general fund, the very first column there, had about $41.4 million of total revenues. compared to about $41.2 million of total expenditures. And then your transfers out during the course of the year to subsidize various capital projects were about $1.5 million, which is the reason for the net decrease in your general fund balance of about $1.25 million. And then if you go to the very last column, 3 rows up from the bottom, you can see across all of your funds, the school had about a $960,000 decrease in fund balances. So again, $4.5 million of capital outlay expenditures contributed significantly to that, but that was the overall change in your fund balance during the course of the year. If you go to page 34, we get into the footnote section of the audit report. And the bottom schedule here on page 34 shows your changes in your long-term or your bonds payable. A lot of my districts like to know how are we doing in terms of covering our long-term debt. You can see the beginning balance at the beginning of the year was about $55.4 million. And then the reductions, or the principal payments in accordance with your maturity schedules, were about $8.7 million during the course of the year, leading to ending long-term debt balance or bonds payable of about $46.7 million at June 30, 2023. So everything is being paid down in accordance with the maturity schedules. And then the last item that I wanted to point out, if you go all the way to page 66, we get into the federal section of the audit report. And because the school expended more than $750,000 of federal funds, in addition to doing our standard financial statement audit, we also perform a compliance audit. So we look at your federal funds, we randomly select your different federal funds for testing each year, and we make sure that those funds are being spent in accordance with the various grant agreements and all the federal requirements, and we make sure that they are compliant with those terms and conditions. And we have a second opinion here. It's a second paragraph down. We wrote, in our opinion, that the school district complied in all material respects with the types of compliance requirements over its federal funds. So again, the school had a clean opinion with regard to compliance over the spending of those federal funds. Those are the highlights that I've got. Certainly happy to take any further questions the board might have.
Does anyone have any questions? Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Right. What?
Okay.
Thank you for that. Thank you. So on page, first question was on page, back to my notes, 71. Let me grab my, this is where I had made. Because I wrote notes on my paper, I'm sorry. Sorry, my pages won't separate. Okay. Yes. On page 71, there's what seems to be very large adjustments. So why did the auditor need to adjust the numbers like this? I'm just looking at, let me look back to my notes. We've got the adjustment in the general fund because of the overstatement and understatement. So, like, I guess I was just having a hard time understanding. I'm not familiar with adjustments this large.
Sure.
So I'm just wondering, why the numbers had to be adjusted that the district submitted and why it was such large adjustments.
Sure.
And is that typical, or what can we do to?
Generally speaking, we don't see this level of audit adjusting entries with our schools. It's a little bit larger than what we typically see. I would say that turnover in the finance department is one of the most common causes for these types of year-end audit adjustments. Having stability in the finance department makes a big difference. And that allows your finance team to be able to go to the various MSBO trainings throughout the course of the year, allows them to plan for the audit and get in front of some of these items. And a lot of our schools will reach out to us in the May and June timeframe and ask us, you know, what is it that we need to do to make sure that we've got our books and records entirely ready for audit, and we can make these suggestions. It's training if we catch it in May or June and we point it out to your finance team then. If we're catching these items, it could be the exact same adjustments, but if we're making them as part of the audit process, then we're required to put them in writing. And
Sure.
include them within the audit report. So a lot of this has to do with timing. If we get contacted in May or June and we see these items and we send it back and say, hey, you need to book these
Yes.
3 or 4 or whatever audit adjustments or adjustments to your books and records, as long as our clients are preparing them before they give us
Okay.
their audit trial balance,
Yeah.
then it's not a finding. But if we are the ones collaborating and I guess, generating the adjustments, then it becomes a finding, which is what you see here.
Okay. So if we're going to have you find them, we need to contact you and have you look through our things May, June.
I think it's definitely best practice to reach out to us in May or June, so we can kind of head some of these items off.
Okay, my other question is on page 6, where we see that our general fund balance is 6%, which is just hovering right above that required 5%. We were a deficit district at one time. We came out of deficit in record time and received recognition for doing so. We had, a year ago, and even with our amended budget, we were looking at a fund balance of 17%. And so now, the 6% is surprising. So, because it shows us how quickly it can go. And this is only as of June 30th.
Right.
This does not factor in our spending and our addition since then. So I guess when you look through this, do you have, and I don't want to say advice because I understand that your job was to audit, but seeing that we went from 17 to 6 in just a matter of months, and when you look through our audit, how do we compare, like, in other districts, what fund balances are now? And should this board start looking at budget cuts? Or we don't want to go back to deficit. We can never ask our staff to ever take cuts again, like our teachers are. So what do we need to know about this 6% number?
That's where, if I were a board member, I would be leaning very heavily on the finance director and be on top of the revenues and expenditures and make sure that things are progressing as budgeted, just so that there aren't any surprises. Yeah, I'd have to go back to the work papers to see which, to see exactly what the audit adjustments were. But the audit adjustments, if we're proposing material audit adjustments, you can be surprised at the end of the year. Whereas staying on top of the finances, effective communication between finance and the board, and just making sure that, you know, your budget to actual is happening as expected. And if you budgeted a surplus, making sure that you're just staying on track, so that the school doesn't go any further backward, but keeps on taking step forward.
The budget to actual.
To me, that is what matters more than anything else, is making sure that you've got a budget document, which is basically the board's plan, and just make sure that you're executing it throughout the course of the year. The problem with, you know, you can't really rely on your auditor, because I'm coming in after
Right.
the fact and telling you, hey, this is how things went. But yeah, definitely looking at those budget to actual reports on a monthly basis and asking questions.
On a monthly basis.
And, yeah, absolutely. I would make sure that they're being monitored on
Right.
a monthly basis.
Thank you for that. Yeah, because we, you know, we're at our bare minimum now, and we've got to. My other question is on page 12. page 12, like, I guess I didn't quite fully understand why there was an over $809,000 negative variance for capital outlay. So, as a board, like, I can't recall, and I tried to look through my notes, in that I cannot pinpoint when this spending occurred. So, my question was then, why wasn't the budget adjusted in June to show that we had budgeted only $155,479 for the capital outlay, but we actually spent $965,000, which had that variance of $809,734. So that's surprising to me. I don't know if the other board members were shocked by that, but should we have reconciled that in June? And then us as a board look to see where that money was spent?
Capital outlay is perhaps the trickiest line item on a budget to, or on a financial statement to balance the budget for. Because you don't know what might arrive in July that belongs and needs to be accrued back into June. So for that reason, especially when the school has ongoing projects, you're kind of looking into a crystal ball and trying to figure out, okay, how much is the contractor going to send to us in July, maybe even as late as August, for construction and progress that they had incurred at June 30. That's where we're seeing a lot of our schools go over budget, is kind of, they underestimate what those construction costs were at June 30, because you're kind of at the mercy of your contractors. That would be, without having the work papers in front of me, that's probably what led to this, or I would expect to find that would be the number one culprit for the reason that the school went that far over budget with this particular line item. You know, wages and supplies and those types of things are a little bit more easy to predict, but when you've got these contractors, some months, they can have $1 million progress billing that they send to the school in July, and if the school didn't budget enough in June for what shows up in the subsequent month, you end up with a budget variance like this. So that would be my best guess. And really the key to staying on top of that is just effective communication with contractors and making sure, okay, what is it that you anticipate billing us in July and August for services or construction that was in progress at June 30. Just kind of staying on top of that, and it's not easy to do. And unfortunately, we have been seeing a few capital outlay line items go over budget for that reason.
Is it typical to see a capital outlay go over budget by more than 5 times the amount budgeted? And how can we,
Is it typical? No, it's not typical to see that type of a variance. So not having the work papers in front of me, and I'm happy to look it up and see, and I can give you a more specific answer, but most likely that's what happened. There was a July invoice that showed up for construction that was in progress, and it had to be accrued back into June. That's one of the more common audit adjustments that we have with our schools, and all of a sudden you end up with, it wasn't necessarily an expenditure that happened last year, but it was a cost that was incurred prior to the end of the year that needed to show up as part of the audit process. So a lot of times the auditors or the audit cycle ends up being the cause for these variances.
I appreciate that. And the reason I'm asking this is because we're at 6%.
Sure.
We're hovering over that 5. These things that jump out, and I'm not a school finance, expert nor, auditor or any of that, but these large numbers, I'm thinking if, it's one thing to be surprised when we're at 17% and it takes us down to 6, but, so I appreciate you answering this so that, we kind of know what to look for going, so, because we can't afford to.
Sure.
Right. So, and I think, let's see, that was 12. And, on page 17, what makes up the unearned revenue, and why is that so high? Is that like title funds or the school safety funds and
Yep,
stuff like
school
that were
safety.
given and we don't spend?
Yep, school safety there was a large amount of funds received by the school that were not spent as of June 30, as well as the mental health. So those were the two newer grants. The school received the funds at June 30, but had not been expended yet, just because of the newness of those grants.
Okay, and then, so my, okay, on page 19. With ESSER still in the budget, what explains for why general fund was overspent by $1,247,000?
The transfer out.
Yes.
The general fund was the reason, primary reason for the decrease in fund balance in the general fund.
Okay. And then I have one last question. My last question is regarding the sinking fund. And let's see, I didn't get that page written down. If one of my colleagues has that number.
It'd be page 57 or page 58.
I've got all my pages out of order.
Yep, the balance sheet is on 57, the revenues and expenditures for the sinking fund are on 58.
Okay, thank you. So, on our sinking fund, we have okay, we see our assets. We have the cash of a little over $1 million and our receivables. And I'm sorry, I'm looking at, that's not sinking fund. Oh, I'm sorry, I see it, yes, here it is. So yeah, it is sinking fund. And so when we're looking at it and we see that what we're left with in our sinking fund is zero. We, looks like we move money there to be able to balance our sinking fund. So sinking fund was overspent, so we had to move money there so that it would balance. Is that because I'm thinking with a sinking fund, are we not able to book a liability? Are we not able to have a negative sinking fund balance?
Right.
Okay, so if we have to move money to sinking fund because we overspent, we can't book a liability, does that mean that we cannot have a journal entry where we book from general fund, book a loan to sinking fund?
Essentially, the funds are loaned right now from the
Right.
general fund to the sinking fund.
Right,
But you are correct. If it was reported as a loan, the fund would be in a deficit, and that would require a deficit elimination plan to be approved by Department of Education.
so if we can see that we overspent sinking fund, so we move money so that it would balance, so we're good. If, in addition to that, we took on more sinking fund expenditures, but paid them out of general fund, are we able, without any journal entry, are we able then to pay back the money we get in this school year for sinking fund and move that over to general fund? Or would we have to do a prior year adjustment, or how does that work?
Yeah, you can repay the loan in the current year.
Even though it was from another
Yes.
period? Okay, so if we do that, is there anything we need to know about that? Because at the end of next year, in addition to the general audit, the single audit, we're also going to have the sinking fund audit and the audit on bonds. So, again, because we can look at this and see we overspent and had to move money, and we actually overspent by another $2 million that we have to end up moving back to general fund, is there anything we need to know in the front end so that we don't raise unnecessary flags?
Not that I'm aware of,
Okay,
no.
all right, thank you. That's all for me.
Thank you, Mr. Berglund.
I had one more question. I don't know if you can answer this. I know I talked to Dr. Gistinger about it. Bonds. When you were talking about the bonds, I don't know, is it in the paperwork? Because I believe a bond drops off at the end of this year. So I don't know if that's in there or not. I don't know if that's something that would be in there.
It's summarized, so we can't see the specific makeup of each individual bond. I believe the footnote disclosure is aggregate only.
Okay. I know the answer to that. I
Sure,
just wanted to
sure.
see if it was in there.
We summarized it just to make sure that the footnote fits onto one page, so.
It's fine. Thank you so much for being here.
It does appear that one bond, it says through the year 2024. I don't know if that means that it is going to be dropped off in the 2024 year.
Yep.
That would be,
Yeah, the following page.
yeah, the second one is,
Thank you, Sue. What page is it?
page 35.
Okay, thank you. Thank you again.
Yep, thank you.
Next, we have a presentation from the Romulus Adult Education and RVLC by Wendy Gretsch. I'm sorry. Miss Wendy G.
It's everybody.
I'm sorry for mispronouncing
Christina
it.
coming up? You coming up?
It just looks horrible, but it sounds like
I'll leave her by herself.
GRISH,
Okay.
so it's super easy. Yep. Oh. You want to come on?
Oh, I didn't want to. He told me to.
Oh, that's excellent. I'm glad you're here. Okay, thanks. All right, so I'm Wendy Grish, Supervisor of Romulus Adult Ed and RVLC, which is our alternative virtual high school. Is that better? Okay. Yep. All right, so our adult ed team consists of Christina, she's our lead high school teacher. Ryan Kanzerski's our lead GED teacher. Michelle Lewandowski is special ed. Theo is our brand-new enrollment specialist. And then we have 5 part-time teachers, 2 of whom have been with us for several years, and 3 of whom have been with us since March. Back in 1978, for those of us who can remember this, I remember the blizzard of 78 and like throwing snow way up high. And back then we used to have Burger Chef, if you remember that. Pacers were pretty cool. That was like the car of my dreams. But I was, you know, like when you're a kid, you're like, ooh, that's awesome. But now that I get older, I see it's not so cool. But one of our students named Carmelina entered 9th grade in that year. In 1979 and later, she dropped out of high school, got married. She had kids and grandkids. Fortunately, her daughter taught her how to use a computer. In July of 2023, she decided to return to school to get her high school diploma. She read at a 2nd grade level. She struggled with her classes. She used the text-to-speech to kind of understand what was going on. And we asked her if she could come to the building to get help, and she couldn't. Transportation issues. Fortunately, she lives on my way home from work. So I stopped off after work several days for a few weeks in a row. And when I first got there, she opened her computer and she highlighted the text, and as it was reading it to her, she followed along and read it out loud. And that's how she kind of understood what she was doing. And then for about a week, I couldn't go see her, and she said, Miss Grish, I need help. And so I went back, and it was probably 10 days between. And she opened her computer, and instead of doing text to talk, she read it to me. And she stumbled over some of the words, but I mean, I'm so impressed with this girl. She averages about 40 hours a week working on her classes. In August, her average grade in her classes was a C-. In September, she bumped it up to a C+. In October, up to a B, and now we expect her to graduate by June of 2023. After graduation, Carmelita wants to get back to using the culinary school skills she learned when she was in high school the first time around. All right, so let's talk about our enrollment over the last few years. You can see last year we had a big bump up. Our average was around 300 for the past few years. Last year we bumped it up to 416. Currently, we're already at 340 students. My goal this year, our goal, is to have 600 students, and I think we can do it. Smile and nod. All right. We also have our completers. That means students who received their GED or high school diploma. So the average for the several years before last year was in the 50s. Last year, we bumped it up to 116. When I did put this slideshow together, we had 19 completers so far this year. We're up to 28 today. Our goal this year is to have 200 completers. Smile and nod. Yeah. All right. So the state for adult ed is separated into 10 different regions. We're part of Region 10. And they keep track of our data for us. What you'll see is what came out in October 10th. And here's Romulus right here. We're at 33%, which is huge. The next closest was, I think, about 8%. That's a number of students who have passed one or more parts of the GED, passed one or more high school classes, or had an EFL gain. That's kind of how they measure what a good job we're doing. So we're off to a rip-roaring good start this year. Pretty proud of that. I started last year, my first day was September 26th. And on November 2nd, I was at a virtual meeting, and it said state adult ed data for the previous program year. And I took a screenshot of it, and I put it in a Google Doc, and I wrote at the bottom, I want to be on this list next year. I'm just saying. It's right there. Kept it on a tab on all my computers so I would look at it. I missed that meeting this year, but someone else saw it and took a screenshot for me. What? Romulus had the highest number of diplomas awarded of all adult ed in the state. Thank you. And Christina and I were talking, I'm pretty sure she had the most graduates of any teacher in the whole state too, so pretty proud of that. But there's a lot more that goes along with this. The students without high school diplomas, they earn about $10,000 less a year than those who have them. They're more at risk to live in poverty. And so every student that we help, we feel like it helps not only them, but their family and their children, and we're changing their lives one generation at a time. So here's some of our graduates from last year. If you were not at our graduation ceremony, we shared some of this data. Last year, the average age of our graduates were 34.5 years old. We had 12 graduates over the age of 50. One was 73 years young. Most of our graduates are 32 years old. The GED math is the hardest for most students to pass. Our GED completers, it took them an average of 1.8 times in order to pass that test. Our fastest GED completer last year took her 10 days. 10 days. Feeling pretty good about that. She's not pictured there, though. All right, so that's the end of the adult ed data. We'll move on to RVLC. So in RVLC, Dom and Danielle, Dom Catanzarite and Danielle Bell are teacher mentors. Michelle Lewandowski is our special ed teacher, and Theo is our brand new enrollment specialist. I just started being supervisor this year in July of RVLC. When I jumped in, it had been identified as a CSI school due to low standardized test scores. That happened when we were a K through 12 general ed and alternative ed school. Now we're back to being just a 9 through 12 alternative education provider. but we're still a CSI school. So we're focusing a lot this year on literacy and math improvement. We brought back the NWEA testing to our students, which had not been done since before Corona, so before 2020. We're working on class completions and graduation. And we're also starting EWIMS this year. We're looking for students who are likely to drop out. And I know you're like, what? They're already at Tier 2 because they're in an alternative high school? Not true. Our Tier 1 is what we're doing for all our students in RVLC. They'll have a different Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3 than the high school and middle school. All right, so our graduates for the last few years, we're hovering around 25. I can't really say what our goal is yet this year because I'm still pretty new to this. I feel like I'm just dipping my toes in the water. Our enrollment for the last few years, we're up just a little bit this year. This is based on count day in October every year. That's what those numbers are based on. The numbers vary quite a bit throughout the year. And here's some of our students in action. Some of the things they like about being in RVLC. They like it because they say it's quiet and they have friends there. Things they struggle with is being in front of a computer all day long, they say is a challenge. And we now have cell phone lockers. So they walk in and they put their phones in the locker and they lock it up. And it seemed to be a challenge the first couple of weeks, but it's going a lot more smoothly now. So that's what I have. Any questions?
Where's our pictures?
I know we did all the friends ones. We didn't get it.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions? Deb?
I do, thank you. I have one question. Because our RVLC, so much of that is done online, and they have the choice of doing it from home or coming in. So my question would be regarding attendance. How is the 75% daily attendance? Is it based on if they come in so many times a week, or if they complete so many assignments per day, or something else?
One would think, but no. The auditors in Michigan decided that two-way communication determines attendance. And so you'll never find an attendance with present and absent every day. They put it in a different way in student engagement in MyStar.
Any other questions? Thank you so much for the presentation and all the wonderful information. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Next, we have our consent agenda. Be it resolved that the Board of Education approves the November 13th, 2023 consent agenda as presented. Matters listed under the consent agenda are considered routine in nature by the Board of Education and will be acted upon by one motion. There will be no separate discussion on these items. If any member of the board or any citizen requests discussion of an item, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and will become the first item of business under the report of the superintendent portion of the agenda. A is approval of the minutes of the Board of Education, October 23rd, 23, regular board meeting, November the 6th, 2023, special board meeting. B is approval of bills for payment as submitted by Dr. Gitzinger in the amount of $1,847,324.76. And C, approval of the personnel actions as submitted by Human Resources Director Kevin Brock. Employment of Kanaya Bowler, Secretary of Romulus Middle School. David Main, Technology Support Specialist. Jess Stone, 5th grade teacher for Romulus Elementary. Morgan Pulowski, Network Specialist. Kimberly Burns, 5th grade teacher at Romulus Elementary. And Dana Walker, Biology teacher for Romulus High School. Is there support?
Support.
There's a motion by Wester, supported by Kennard. Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Wester,
Yes.
Kennard,
Yes.
Laster,
Yes.
Piles, yes. McCarthy,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
motion carries.
Thank you. Next on our agenda is the report of the superintendent, Dr. Benjamin Edmondson.
Good evening. I have three three topics to discuss briefly. First one is transportation cost increase. I met with the transportation company twice already about this. Transportation is important in this district, and obviously costs are going up, and being competitive is an issue. So I was just going to briefly read a snippet of an email from the transportation company. What I'd like is to have a study session, like, geez, another board meeting. But a study session, I'm hoping that two things can happen, but the first one would be transportation. I'd like them to be there. I'm going to have a conversation with Maria. She knows that we're going to meet with transportation to hear what they're presenting, and then I'd like to bring them in front of the board. And I said, ask every question that you want to ask. So I'd like to have that, if we could schedule that. I don't want to be in December, but I think it needs to be done. So if you all can check your schedules, and again, I'd like to try to make that twofold, but that's one of them. Maybe I don't have to read it. I won't read it. We'll just address it then. But there are concerns.
Pertinent for us right
No,
now?
I don't think he's just saying that they need to remain competitive, and that they're trying to remain competitive. We just lost two bus drivers to Wayne Westland prior to Wayne Westland. So, an issue is insurance, wages, guaranteed hours, and things like that. But fortunately, I was like, we've been pretty insulated from some of the issues that other districts have had, because we have bus drivers that come and support us and come to work every day. And in particular, when we had the train derailment, they were off, and every last one of them came back to assist. And they are very important, and we just need to have the conversation. And we know that wages is an issue across our country for everybody. So I'd like to just have that meeting and then just present you with all the information. I mean, it's not like I have anything in front of me. They gave me preliminary numbers and then went back and changed that, but I'll let them discuss that in front of you. I don't want to taint anybody's perception. So I'll make sure that I have that, and then you all can have those questions. Okay, so if we can-
Dr. Edmondson,
Yes.
to that, where transportation cost increase, what is the date or tentative date when we're looking at that? Or has it happened already?
Not to my knowledge. They have put in some money themselves, the transportation company, but they're like, they need some help from us to offset some of their cost. So I'd just like us all to have the same information together, so that we can sit there and hear it, and everybody can ask their questions.
So one more question, when we're going to meet, if I may request some information that we have. We put out an RFP for transportation back in 2018. So our first year with this, our contract with this company was a 3-year contract. Year 1 was 18-19, year 2 was 19-20, and year 3 was 20-21. So in that 3-year contract, the costs with increases were laid out. And then there was a clause in there that said that the contract could be renewed, if both parties consented. We have not, since 2021, when it would have expired, nothing has ever come back to the board for that. And I'm glad they're here, but if you could please provide us with what the transportation costs were for 21-22 and 22-23, because we know from the contract what those first 3 years were, but we don't know what we've paid for the following 2. So thank you.
You got it.
I guess, can I, President Wester, can I ask a question? I guess I'm a little confused as to why, when you say that they have put out money, that we might have to pay them back, or...
Not pay
No,
them
no, no. But what kind of money could they be putting out that they are not, that Romulus is not knowledgeable about? I'm confused
I
with that
believe they gave
statement.
a couple of dollars extra to their people. I don't know when. I mean, I don't know when, but a few extra dollars to their folks. I think I don't know if they're getting $24 an hour or something, but I know that the surrounding districts are really competitive, and you have people that want to jump. So again, and I would ask you if there's any, I got your information, if there's other information that I can provide, I'll give it to you. It's just
Thank
that
you.
simple.
That would Good, Dr. Edmondson, if we could have the rates of what other districts are paying their bus drivers.
Sure.
And just to be clear, so we're not paying any increased costs until after we have this meeting, and it would be
Not paid-
approved by
we
the
have not
board.
paid anything yet.
And we won't,
That's up to you all.
right?
That's
Until,
up to- right,
I mean,
that's up to you
it
all.
won't happen until we have our study session, become more informed, and then,
Yeah, I'm not doing anything.
right.
I'm not gonna do anything. That's, you
Right.
all can make that decision.
Because we budgeted $600,000 less already for this year for transportation compared to last year. And that's one of the questions we asked during the budget approval was, why have we budgeted $600,000 less when we know that costs go up each year? Plus, we're committing to providing transportation for after-school activities. So we knew it'd go up significantly, but instead it went down by 600,000, and now we're talking about increased costs. So we've got to buffer that in plus the increase. So all of that information would be great.
Thank you.
No problem. I'm glad to have Dr. Gistinger, and I mean that. When we were listening to the audit, there wasn't anything that surprised me because you've sat down with me several times and our cabinet to explain. So I just thank you because I said to you earlier today, accurate information from your finance department is critical. So it aligns, so thank you. Next thing is, I have bond discussion, and it's discussion. It's for the board. I don't know if we'll be able to discuss it here, but I certainly don't mind. I know that bonds are going to drop off at the end of the year, and I kind of say it like this. When you go to a store and it has a sale price, and then you get the sale price, and then it goes back up to full price, guess what? A lot of people are not going to buy it again, won't buy that product. Once taxes go down, it's hard to get a community to say, yeah, we'll raise it once it comes down. Again, this is your choice. I just think that you need to be knowledgeable and try to make a decision one way or the other. But I have some things that I'd written down that you've heard before. One is strategic plan. So I'm not going to beat you over the head with that. But, you know, if you had wanted to do a bond, you're looking at November 24, which is obviously a presidential election. I believe that the enhancement millage is due up too. I believe Wayne County, don't quote me, but I think it's due up same time. So you would have that one on the ballot anyway for Wayne County. I don't know the history. I just believe that the last bond was maybe 1998, I think, in the district. I mean, I don't want to be sarcastic, but 1998, that says a whole lot. I'd written down here, and I know I've given you all this manual. I didn't ask you to read it, but you should probably look through aspects of it. You know, what I have here is, one of the things that they said is boards and superintendents not in sync. When they're not in sync, the school district isn't in sync. So I think it's important. I'm not saying that we're not in sync, but we've got to be in sync. If you're going to do this, we've got to be in sync. Okay? We all have to know the information. We need to have to be able to sell it one way or the other, but the important thing is that you have to be in sync. You're not in sync, it's likely not to pass. So that's something that we have to consider. Are we in sync? And if not, we need to get in sync if we're going to do something like that. But you also have to remember, once the bonds drop off, it's extremely difficult to come back to your community. I'm not saying this community won't do it. It's just more difficult because of the things that you have to say once taxes go down. So it's just something to consider. But I also put on here, because it says in that book, what's the Romulus Community Schools story? I mean, I think plenty of people can talk about what the old story was, and I'm not talking about the last 2 years. I'm talking about the last 20. But what's the current story? What will be the story? What is the story that we want for our community, we want for our kids in the next 3 to 5 years, or if you'd like to go longer, the next 10 years? When I was in a different district, a neighboring district had $1 billion bond, billion with a B. And I was just amazed, and I said, people should be asking the question, what are things going to look like in 10 years? Before you vote for something, you have to be able to envision what it looks like. So for me, it's what is our story? I think about people that I know that are, some of them in the audience that have been here a long time who can provide the story of Romulus, as well as people on this board. But what's the new Romulus story? What are young families saying? Why would they come here? Why? Okay, if this district looks just like the next district, why would you come here? Not my answer. I think that's for us to determine in a strategic plan. As I told the cabinet today, you've got to participate. We've got to have the community participate, and we have to have staff participate, again, because you're building the vision. But my question will continue to be, what's the RCS story? And what do you want the story to be? Some of the things that I wrote down, just thinking about, my story is when I ride to schools, and I go into schools, and I hit all of those potholes in the school district and the parking lots. It's a lot of potholes. And I think, where are we going to get the money to be able to fix that? Truly, where are you going to get the money to fix that? Okay, they're already, some of them are dilapidated already. I know we keep putting I forgot what I can't think of the name, Bill. Coal patch in there. Yeah, okay, that works. And I'm just saying, like, you know, we had a trustee here talk about the tennis courts. And my thing is this, I mean, frankly, I'll say it, if it's my own community, I'd say the same thing. Well, if it looks bad and if people aren't going to use it, why do we even have it? If people aren't going to use it, okay? Why aren't they using it? Is this a community where tennis is valued or not? If not, I mean, there's some decisions that have to be made, and tough decisions if you really want to move the district forward, and we do. And the district is not just us. It's not just the kids. It's the taxpayers that live here. They have access to all the same facilities the kids have. But if we are complaining about a tennis court, nobody uses them, then we need to rethink about the tennis court. Is that something that we need, or do you want to turn it into a pickleball or something else as an example? I put buildings. Now, what I'm talking about, I don't want anybody to leave here and say I'm talking about demolishing buildings, because I'm not. But I'm asking, when we have 6, hypothetically, because I can't think of it right now, 7 buildings, okay? All of them under capacity, underutilized by 50%. All of them are more than 50%. What are we gonna do? Okay, we have 2,100 kids that are choosing outside the district. I'm not certain they're gonna come back, and I would say that they're likely not to. Okay, it's not anything that you've done or we've done. It's that in the state of Michigan, people are leaving districts. Not just here, they're leaving every district. So it's unlikely that those folks will come back. But we have a huge high school with 600 kids. 600 kids. And then we have to heat and cool the whole building for 600 kids. At some point, we have to have the conversation. It's a tough conversation. Is that what you want? Do we want a building that's under capacity? Or do you start thinking about maybe you have to look to a 612 model? One wing, another wing, or one floor, another floor. And I know people that are, live in a district and they're really connected to their schools have a hard time thinking about that. They don't want that. But what's the other choice? 30% under capacity or 70% underutilized? And these are things that you have to ask yourself in the next 5 to 10 years, is the district going to be viable, or are these buildings okay? We look at some, I'm not going to say neighboring districts, but some other districts, huge buildings, ton of buildings still sitting there, underutilized. Okay, sometimes the community has to make the decision, a tough decision, to move the community forward. Okay, or you can get stuck. Okay, again, not here. Specialty programs. What makes Romulus so special? Oh, we have STEAM. That's about it. And that's not a disregard or disrespect to anybody's work at all. But I presented over this with my team, and I just talked about, Spanish immersion. You could have skilled trades, building, like some things that we could do. We're doing AI. We could have an AI or a commit. So many things. Okay, it's not 1990 anymore. Okay, I'm still thinking about 1990 and how different I am since 1990 in most respects, not all. Okay, and same with the district. It shouldn't look the same that it did in 1990. Somebody's got to make the decision. You need a board that's going to say, let's move us forward. A school district that's going to make us move forward. We need to ask young parents, why do you come to Romulus? Okay, and I don't want to say it that way, but why? What do we have to offer that's so hot? Okay, when you see other districts doing the same thing and they're doing the same thing, so why come here? Again, another thing we need to think about. Security, another thing. I have here some of the things that we're looking at that you all may not know, but I'm weapon detection system for the main offices, entrances, and high-volume common areas, emergency action plans, ballistic film for various entrances. Like, we have to be real. I mean, this is the society we live in now, and how are we going to pay for this stuff? Okay, whether we do a bond or not. I don't care if we don't do a bond, or if a bond fails, still got to pay for it if we're going to do it, and where are we going to get the money from? Just the last thing I put in, busing, I believe. Sue, you might have been in there with me. Is it like 10 buses? Did we hear that? Something like, I think you were in there with me when
Yeah,
that was stated.
I think it's 10 buses that we are eventually needing to replace quickly. And unfortunately, 7 or 8 years ago, when we bought those 10 buses, I said, we need to allow to replace on an annual basis. We don't have to let them age out, but if we can reinvest in a newer bus and sell the ones that are on, you know, it's like owning a car. You don't wait until it breaks down to buy a new one. You reinvest in a better one. And here we are, 7, 8 years later, replacing 10 buses. It's sad that we didn't do that on a regular basis, but
But we have a chance, okay? And I go back to what I said. Perhaps, maybe back then, boards and soups were not in sync. If you're not in sync, that's the stuff that happens. Or you have some times where the superintendent, frankly, not respected. The opinion, the expertise, the experience, not even respected. Okay, that happens in districts. I'm not going to say this district, that happens in districts. I know Debbie remembers me saying 2 years ago, like, let the experts be the experts. Okay, I'm not an expert in all things, but I have a vision, but I don't want to have the vision for the district. And I mean that, because all I have to do is walk away. And then whose vision is it? The community has to own the vision. The superintendent does not own the vision. Okay, the community has to do that. And I would suggest that we really work hard. We have to be in sync, and we have to decide, is this something that we want to do? If you don't do a bond, I'm fine. That doesn't make this stuff go away. It's not going to go away. Parking lots, buildings, specialty programs. So I'm going to ask you all as a board to just start thinking about, what do you want? You all live here. This is the community in which you reside. Your taxes go here. We really need to see, you know, what do we want, and let's make it happen. Whether it's a bond issue or not, let's make that happen. Next, C, real estate. That's my next, what is it?
Point.
No, I was thinking about workshop, what did I say, study session. So a few of us, there were three of us at this table met with the mayor and a team of his, and he shared a little bit of his vision, as well as a developer that's looking at Olive Street right here. Now, I can share that the mayor has this idea of revitalizing downtown, and I tell him that all the time. If you want to revitalize downtown, then I understand that Olive Street is very important, okay, to anybody that wants to do it. And then I'll say, like I always say, we're not giving it away. It's not going to happen, period. It's not going to happen. So we had a developer there that wants to buy a couple of acres on Olive Street, wants to put some really nice houses there, rentals. You are my witness. You know what I said.
Absolutely.
I'm not liking rentals, okay? In and out, it doesn't help. People are here and gone tomorrow. And then I said demographically, okay, if they're not black, they're usually not choosing, they're not going to be here, generally speaking. And I speak openly about race. I don't know about the rest of you, but I do. It's unlikely. And I'm not saying that that's who's going to live there, but based on what I see here, it's unlikely. So I had that conversation, and I also had the conversation that they wanted to parcel out the land. So if you get the prime spot down Olive Street and you buy 3 acres, but everything behind it, if you buy it, you have to look at houses in front of you or rentals. That's not going to work. Okay, this is what I said. These two are my witnesses. I love this district. Okay, I do. I love the district. I like the idea, but I'm not giving it away. And I said any developer can pay $450,000 for the whole thing. Okay, it's not going to kill you. If you're a developer and you don't have $450,000, I'm just saying. So I asked them to come sit down with us, present. The mayor's more than welcome if he wants to, but to present their case to our board and our community. I expect our community out there to listen to what is happening in this, potentially in this community. The board and me, if we make that decision, we have impacted Romulus big time, one way or the other. Okay, one way or the other. But I'm just not going to, I'm not for that. I'm like, you can buy the whole thing, good riddance. But to buy, you get landlocked. Okay, we'll be landlocked if they get 3 acres or 4 acres, and they said they get first shot to buy the rest. But guess what, as Bill, I think it was Bill said it. Guess what? When the other properties, the other acreage is worthless, then they're gonna say, hey, we'll buy it for $10. Okay,
Which isn't
so-
much more than, or much less than what they want to pay right now.
Yeah, so, I'm
I mean,
just saying.
can we share what the?
What's,
offer is?
wait,
Listen, we
what's the
can talk
total
about-
acreage, so that we have a point
20,
of reference?
it says 22. I thought it was 17, but it was 22.
One moment, I can tell you.
And they're wanting to buy how many?
I don't know, it's like, was it 3 or 4?
Four, it was
Was it
like
4?
but they wanted it right off.
Prime
They
time.
wanted it right off the front, right at the front.
Yeah, so we can
it's
talk, and you
facing
can always
Robinson
go into
on the
closed
back
session
of
about it,
So
but for
right,
what?
Well, we
acres
can't
over
go into
on Mount
closed
Pleasant.
session for selling, we can go
Right.
in for buying.
Right.
But just so the public knows, right now it's listed for $450,000. They want to put 17 lots across the front at $17,000 a lot, or 10
did the math,
acres,
yeah.
10 lots and 10,000. It only winds up being, it's very, very minimal. It's 1,700 a lot, right?
I don't even know.
It's-
Yes,
It's 1,700 a lot, and they want to put 17 lots or 10 lots across, depending on how they structure them.
1,700, like 1,000?
Yes.
Yes.
700?
Yes.
Oh.
So they would want
yes, yes.
1/3 of the property
Yeah.
for $17,000.
No,
Kick the can down
First
the
of all,
road.
this community would boot me out.
yep.
And you should. I told Mr. Brock we should get our money together and buy it ourselves, and then we can do whatever we want with it, but
Let our kid- let our
I was a
kids
little
go
bit
along.
insulted, for a lack of a better term. I was a little bit insulted.
It's insulting.
But, you know, it's for the board to decide in the community. So we're trying to have, I'd like to propose that we have a study session with that and give them the opportunity to present. And I'd like everybody to have an opportunity to be able to ask questions about that.
Yes, thank you.
Beautiful homes, but nah, I'm not feeling it.
Well, what's interesting too, Dr. Edmondson, is the fact that this construction company, this developer, went to the city, and the city presented us with the purchase agreement, not even our Realtor. So it's a little bit,
Yeah, no, they haven't,
yeah,
and they're not getting it like that.
right.
So I wanted to propose that. I wanted to tell the board, I think you know this, but I'm going to share that we have a new offer for Merriman. Okay, I shared it with you, but it's $750,000 was their offer. The roof is bad. There's a lot of stuff that's bad. But I like to do a little negotiating if that's your first offer. Like, come on now, that's your first offer. But I will do whatever the board would like me to do there. I think it's time to let it go. The only thing that bothers me is that when a church buys it, okay, not having a charter school, somebody said that before, like, no, but they could I'm not worried about a charter school at a church. But I'm like, they don't pay taxes to your
Neither do
school
we.
district.
So,
Right. I'm just saying, it doesn't, I was going to tell you that I was going to ask that we go back and we counter, and then let them counter one more time, and let's go. And if they don't go for it, let's go. Let's get it done. Bill has been gracious, his team running out there all the time. It's time to let it go.
Can I ask a question about the roof, please?
You'd have to, he'll be able to answer the roofing issues. I cannot.
Didn't we just invest money in the roof and fix over the gym and do quite a bit of update on that roof recently?
Not quite a bit. We did some minimal repairs because it was leaking so bad. Right now, the last estimate that we got for the roof to replace it was upwards of $350,000 to $400,000.
Okay.
So that would square up the first offer we had a little bit more. I would recommend to this board that we counter and try to find some way to give this building, this once treasured, beautiful, loving part of this community, a new life. I'm afraid of what will happen, that it will go the way of Burton and the way of Mount Pleasant, and that is is the worst-case scenario for me. But we're not far from there. We're one polar vortex, one bad scenario, so I'm right there with Dr. Edmondson. I feel we need to, as quickly as possible, within
Exactly.
reason, make sure that this has a new home.
Madam President, Mayor. Yes. So what are you suggesting that we should be countering?
Oh, that's not up to me.
Okay,
I'm
so
not that money guy.
Edmondson?
Yeah.
So can I,
I'm like, so we don't want to go where it will be too high, and I know you know what you're not gonna, what range, but I'm saying, we don't want to make sure that we
Oh, no, we're not going to.
stress
We're
that.
not playing that game.
Okay, all right.
Oh, 1.2.
right,
We're not-
the previous negotiations on it for the buyer that just backed off, I believe it started around 6, and it was just stated we wouldn't take any less than 9. And eventually we got there. But again, the condition of the roof was not what it is today.
And
Okay.
every
Every storm,
every season change, those roofs, they shrink and swell and they crack more. So
Right.
we're coming into the winter, and this is the scary time.
I have a question.
I just wanted to, the president and trustee, you were at that meeting with me if you wanted to share anything that I may have omitted that you really want to share. They were at the meeting with the mayor, with me, and talking about this Olive Street. So I don't know if there was anything you wanted to add, then
I think we were
Secretary
all,
Powell's here after that.
I think we were all in sync with that because we wanted to make sure that the community would be a part. And to have rentals, you always look at it from, it becomes a negative. It's like you think of transient and things of that nature. So when you have a community like that, like ours, we knew it was going to raise a lot of questions. So it's like we talked about the study session so that we can have it where community can come and answer the questions, get the answers, and hear it for themselves, because they're telling us no, it won't, because of how they were going to do the marketing and things of that nature. But we can start off that way, but we know how things change. Everything, these are moving pieces. And you say you want this, but it could wind up going the other route because it doesn't meet qualifications. But it is, we would like to do a study session. We told them it would be after the first of the year because with the holidays and things going on. But bring
Here for 24 hours.
a study marathon. But, that way we will have it, everyone can come out, ask their questions, get everything, and then we can decide to see where we want to go, how we want to do it.
I forgot one more thing, and I have to add after you go.
Okay.
I know what I
That
forgot.
might be what bring it up. But anyway, I think, in responding to what Dr. Edmondson and President Wester stated is that we were pretty much in sync, particularly for me. But my focus was primarily is what the community thought, and particularly those individuals who stay in that area. For any economic development, I feel that, when we're looking at building and doing that, that's what one of the aspects of what helps the school system in terms of bringing families into the community. But for me, the single-family dwellings, they're nice. They were nice looking. They were, structured very well and what have you. But, we as a district, in looking at that property, I was concerned about being landlocked, number one, even though they did have some type of drawings for that. But there's a time frame. If you're only purchasing the front part and you have to wait and see what happens there, you don't know how long that back piece, but they need new development. They explained that to us as well. And I think there was another part, and correct me if I'm not, I kind of missed it, but there was something they were going to be paying the district. Was there a cost? I thought I heard something where we would receive some type of,
It was some type of grant or
Yeah,
funding
some
that they
type of
would get
grant.
to present for us to get, because I questioned about with rentals, there's no tax base.
right?
And they said it would be a tax base and how they would be able.
Right,
And,
so
but
they're
then
paying-
there were some grant monies or
Oh.
something to be able to come into the potential into this.
Okay, so with that, that wasn't clear, and I was just thinking, we as a district, we are in the business of educating students. And so upset with me. So we did suggest that they come before the board, the community, to get more details. You can have the opportunity to ask the type of questions.
Well, one thing that I said is, I made it clear, I'm not a fan. And I said it several times, and I made it clear. However, I did say this. The only way that I would go with that is if, when we get new employees to the district, that we walk them over to there and we give them the first shot at staying in these rentals. Because that could be a great way to attract a new family or a young family, because it's not low-cost housing, it's affordable. So you have to make a certain amount of money. I think it was 80,000 plus up to a certain amount. And I said, so if somebody came and we hired them, and then we said, hey, listen, we need you to go on over there because you're going to get first shot at these rentals. I said, that's the only way that I would ever buy into that. And I said, but if you don't do that, I'm out. I just don't support it. But if we could do something that's cutting edge where our folks get the first shot, then I will absolutely, I said I would endorse something like that if that's the way that it looked. Forgot that piece.
Okay, and I just want to add another thing. So one question that the mayor did ask the district is, what do we think, what can they do to acquire that? They want to know, what is it? So when we have this.
Yeah, 450.
So they're looking to develop that area, and so the thing of it is what is it that the community would want, and what can they do to acquire that? What can they do to change our mind, so to speak, allowing them to purchase that property?
How about offer 10% above what we're asking? I want the board to stop and realize something about it. There's no building to tear down. It may be our most valuable piece
Yes.
of property.
Yes.
All the utilities are right there. It's ready to go. No trees to cut down. Nothing to clear. It may be our most valuable piece. The police station is right there, so it's one of the safest places in Romulus. And it's like Dr. Edmondson said, if they build up that interior of Romulus, those houses there will be worth a fortune. I mean, that's our prime piece, and I just wanted to give the board that as you're deciding what you want to do. That is a primo piece of
Do we know when the last time it was appraised?
it wasn't one of the. I don't.
Around 2020, I think.
Was it?
I have it, I can look.
Okay, yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, I think yes. Yes. But if they want the property, give us 10% above market value. I mean,
Purchase it all.
it's just such a prime piece of
Well-
real estate.
Has it been rezoned for what they want to do? I mean,
Currently, it is a single parcel, part of the board office.
thank you.
That was my
Yeah,
next
exactly.
question to you.
That's exactly.
That was my next
It's
question.
not even the Olive Street property. It is
No, it is
the
part
board
of this building. So we have to actually have a rezone. We have to have it,
So let's sell this one.
I'm just big.
Actually, you
And go build, yeah.
Actually, we could, well, I'm
No.
not gonna say.
Right.
So I have a question on this, Madam President. So, first of all, we have this listed at 450 something, we'll say 450,000 for 22 acres, okay? They want to buy 3 or 4 at 1,700. If they bought all 22 at $1,700, that would be a sale price of $37,400. Instead of the 450. And then, to make it worse, like as if that's not insulting enough, they want to buy 3 or 4, which would give us 5,100 to 6,800, and then save the rest for maybe that's like going into church on Easter Sunday and you know it's going to be packed and saving an entire pew for people who are going to try and get there before the service ends.
Okay, Debbie.
And then you what you're doing is you are taking room and space that people could use or develop and say, nope, sorry, somebody might be coming. I mean, that's just, we really need to look at our 450,000 and not be looking, I don't care if it is booming, right? I mean, that's good. We want good things for the community, but do we want to have something be good while we shortchange the district and our students in order to do it? And that was my other thing is, again, when we're talking about Merriman that we would like to get 900,000 for. And we have an offer of what was it, 750?
Oh, I thought it was 7.
Well, whatever, we're talking about the difference of a couple 100,000, and we're like, oh, no, let's go back and negotiate. But 450 and 37,000, that's where some negotiating needs to take place, right? I mean, and again, back to Merriman, and then I'll leave it on this. Back to Merriman, it would be nice if we could sell that to somebody who, is paying taxes. That's best for our city. Ideally, right? But, again, we have to make financial decisions based on what's best for our district. And right now, no taxes are going into the city from Merriman. And so, let's say worst-case scenario, 700,000, that property's been sitting there for a long time, right? And the city itself has all this TIF area, so it doesn't appear like they're, exactly. So we need to do.
I'm definitely not worried about that, and I said the same thing with renters. You can have 10 families there, it's not even gonna put a dent in what we do here financially. So I would just say in closing, don't forget Mount Pleasant and the families that live there. I will continue to say that every time that I get a chance. That's an eyesore. If we're gonna be fighting for Olive Street and fighting for Merriman, then I wanna see that same fight for Mount Pleasant. It needs to come down. Got a little shocker we got a little shocker what we heard today about like sinking fund. There are things that we can do, but obviously some money has gone into the general fund went into, so you pay it back. If we weren't to pay it back, then we could knock down, but I'm like, we need to pay that money back and make sure that it goes back to the general fund. But on your radar, on our radar has to be to take that building down.
Can I ask a question,
it.
Dr. Edmondson?
Sure.
At one point, someone, and I can't remember who, so you probably remember, there was discussion about grants for demolishing property. Have we checked into any of that to see what's available through city, through state, through anything? I mean, we had to tear down, I think we were required to tear down Inkster High School. Didn't we have to tear that down, Billy? Did we get any type of grant for that? Or did that come out of our general fund?
I can answer. You can do that one. I'm not touching that one.
Okay, so that was funded through the state. They gave us an opportunity. RISA formulated for all of Inkster what would be the determination, and then school districts had to decide. At that time, most of you remember, we were just in deficit. It was our first year in deficit, and we were struggling. And so it was decided that, along with Wayne County RISA and with the administration at that time, that building would be demoed. We couldn't afford to maintain it. We were having multiple break-ins. We were with the police all the time. The building was getting stripped of all the copper. So that was funded through a state grant.
Okay, thank you.
To answer your question, yes, I've talked to Kevin Kraus. He's director of, I forgot what's, sorry, Kevin. But I talked about, we want to do that, and he said we should get together because there might be some funds that we can assist you with. It just needs to come down. That's all. I would hope that's my legacy when I leave. I want that gone.
Have you talked to Mark Graham, our grants person, to see if he can research and see what's available out there?
I can. I haven't really said anything. Not to my knowledge. I can't remember saying anything to him about that. But I can do that too. I just want it down. It just needs to come down.
And Dr. Edmondson, just as a FYI, the enhancement millage went on the ballot in 2016 and was set to expire, the first one, the fall of 2022. So in the fall of 2020, there was a renewal that would extend it instead of ending in 2024. 2022 would take it to 2024. So in 2024, have the option to, instead of it ending the fall of 2020, because it's 6-year terms. So in 2020, what we know now is this will go through the fall of 2026, our enhancement millage. Because
Yeah, I
there's
just got
6-year
something
terms
the-
from 16 to 22, and then in 2020, there was just to add 2 more years, so it wouldn't expire in 22, it would expire, yeah. So right now, we are set through fall of 2026, and it's approximately like 300 per student. I know initially, we used to use that fund, and Mr. Garland, correct me if I'm wrong, to purchase buses. We use enhancement funds a lot for buses, but all we know now is that we have it through 2026, but there might be the renewal on the ballot in 2024 to take
That's-
it 6
yeah.
more years.
Then that's it, because I had to fill out how we use our millage, how we use our money, and every superintendent in Wayne County had to respond.
Yes.
So, just saying, if it's on there, you might want to throw something else on there. But again, I'm finished with my report, but I do not want to drop the bond. A decision has to be made one way or the other, but I also talked about there are considerations that I'm not going to discuss at this table, but there's considerations when you do that, okay, that we really need to think about, because community's counting on you, and somebody's got to be the face of that, and somebody's got to go out in the community and do all those things. So got to make sure that that's the right person that you want out in the community. So you all have some thinking to do. We do.
Dr. Edmondson, I have a question for your report that's not on here. We had voted,
Script.
I had the date, I forgot it. I want to say back at the beginning of the school year to get quotes for insurance, because we only had coverage up to a certain amount. And so Mr. Brock brought to us an action item to go get quotes and bring back, because we wanted that extra coverage. We wanted to see what the rates are. So just wondering if we have an update on that.
Which quotes?
To get the
for
rider.
us? I know we're paying for it, so I don't know, I just know we're paying for a rider.
So what's our
You're
coverage?
asking
you
me
know?
now, like, I can get it for you.
Okay. Yeah, that would be great, because I know the motion was to get quotes and bring them back to the board. I didn't realize we'd already got the policy, but
think
if
we
we
already
have,
had
we
it
should know
before.
what it is.
Yeah, we had it before. I know we had it because it ended July 1st. I had to have
Right.
something done. Done,
No,
yes.
no, no, because, and we'll have to look back at the minutes, because that's when it was going to renew, and we were getting our own policy. But the rider, the motion was to get quotes on it. We didn't, Mr. Brock stated in that meeting, we didn't have to have it by July 1. We had to renew our current insurance. But the motion was to put out quotes so we would know what we were looking at for a rider, and if we could even get a rider. Because at that point, we weren't even sure.
So we're paying for something, I can tell you that. I know that. Maybe not, but if we get sued, guess what? We're covered.
But, well, right,
We'll get to it. Listen, I'll be glad to come back to you, but
but I mean, there was
at
just
least we're
no
covered. I
follow-up.
have peace of mind that we're covered. That's it. That's it. I'm done.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is the report of the Director of Human Resources. I still have to read it. Kevin Brock, would someone like to read the action item, please?
Madam President, move that the Board of Education approves the creation of the after-school/attendance agent position. Rationale, this individual will spend half their time supervising after-school programming and half their time as an attendance agent at Romulus High School. Budget implications, 90% 31A and 10% general fund. Exhibits job posting.
Support.
We have a motion by Davis, supported by Kennard. Is there any discussion?
These motion sheets should include the salary. We keep saying that, and it doesn't happen. The salary is $40,000. And how many days how many days is this for?
5. Nobody's working 4 days around here. 5.
I mean, for
Full-time.
school year. Is it a
Oh, I
school
don't know.
year, or is
It'd
it
have to be a school year. It's a school year.
And this will be prorated through the end of the school year, correct?
Yes.
Is this like a second shift? What, I mean, it says after-school attendance agent, so is that somebody who's coming in like are they focusing on just after-school programs? What is the?
And during the school year, and during the school day for the high school to give them assistance in their attendance issues, truancy issues, not an attendance liaison. And then in the afternoon, that person's job is we have a lot of parents that call schools. Guess what, after school? Nobody answers the phone, nobody. So this person's job is to we give everybody that number, that phone number that we get, and parents can call this person, ask about their kids. Where are they? Or my kid has to leave early. We need somebody to coordinate that. Right now, we do not have that. And we continue to get parent phone calls that
So if this
nobody's
person's at the
answering.
high school, how does that help when parents, because we heard a parent speak about the middle school, they can't get, so we're focusing
for
on.
the high school.
It said the high school, right?
Yes,
But
they're helping out the high school, but
we
the
heard
after-school
somebody-
component
right.
is not the high school, it's the district.
So I think, for clarity, I think the question is, what would the hours for this position be? Because normally we say, like, administration is 8 to 4. So if theirs is a hybrid schedule, what would their timing be to be able to ensure for the after-school coverage for parents and things of that nature? Is that where they work
So that's it.
10 to 6? You know, you understand what I'm saying?
If I-
Understand.
No, but my follow-up question, because we were talking about how it's needed, because when parents call, they can't, get information about their child. Well, we have after-school programs going on now at every single building, and it's one body. So I guess I'm not understanding how that really addresses the problem. If I call and he's at, or they are at, one building, how does that benefit us, one body?
I mean, I don't want to get two bodies.
Good luck getting one.
No, I hear you.
House accommodation.
And then the other thing, I like, that's stuff that, I'd like to know, because, we hear this, but, yeah, we need somebody to answer phones. So again, back to that point, what is the salary? And how much of their,
Work schedule.
how much
Is
of their
Is the
time?
salary not on there? It's
No, it's not.
40,000.
It's on the job description,
Right,
not on
that's
our
right.
budget.
So-
Oh,
yes,
okay.
Okay.
And then, how much, time is spent answering phones? Is this something, if it's just answering phones and getting messages to students, is that something that our secretaries could do? Are we able to see if, it's not a secretarial position, but, when we pay people stipends for after-school things, is this something that, because a secretarial rate would be less than that, maybe we could only have a few hours and have them in all the buildings, so that if I'm calling for my middle schooler, and I don't hear, oh, nope, I'm at the high school today, don't know what to say. And my other concern is, because we look at our budget, and when we approved our budget, we grossly under budgeted. We know that we cut transportation budget by $600,000, which is not practical. We know that our operations costs were cut by about $500,000. We're looking at all of this, and as we've added the new positions we already have, those weren't calculated into the budget. So if we're adding these new things, what are we cutting? And at what point are we, I'm at 6%. 6% is low. And if we keep adding salary expense,
That was understated, too, yeah.
but we know, and our salary
Just-
expense
we
was
just-
stated.
We just had an audit, but I'm going to leave all this alone. Don't vote for it.
No,
just don't- you don't
Dr.
have
Edmondson,
to-
what
that's
I'm,
all right.
what I'm
You can move
what I'm
on.
asking is the budget we approved in June, at the end of June, we severely under budgeted. So, but even though we severely under budgeted, we have added new positions since then, and we haven't seen where any cuts are coming from or how we're going to. So I'm just, like, if we could just have that first, so we don't find ourselves in a situation we cannot come back from.
I'm going to say two things. Again, and this is no offense, vote no. Number two, Dr. Gistinger is there. I've told the board, you can meet with her anytime and she can get this. Severely under budgeted, I don't see that. I don't see where we severely under budgeted when we know what title monies we have, we know what 31A, we have 31AA, general fund. It would be an issue. I think an auditor would have gotten up and said, bing, uh-oh, you guys are in trouble. I get it, but we're not. But again, I'm just like, hey, if you don't want, I'm all right. I'm totally all right. I just would like to move forward and vote no if you don't want it, or if you don't believe that we have the money, vote no. We just move
Dr.
on.
Edmondson, it's not about believing, it's asking a question. The
And
auditor.
you
the-
asked me that before. I
The
told you.
auditor
Dr.
audited our
Gistinger is here.
22-23, right?
Dr.
Does he
Gistinger
look?
is here.
Okay.
We've had
So-
that conversation.
So when the auditor audited our 22-23 school year, did he also look at our proposed 23-24 budget? See, of course he doesn't. Right.
But he says with
You-
6%, we need to start watching our
Yes,
expenditures.
he's-
Those were his words
Madam
standing there.
President, Mayor. So I'll ask the same question I've always asked when positions come before the board. Did the finance review this? And they are looking at this and saying that we're sustainable with this request, this action item.
I will let Dr.
And she'll
Gistinger.
let Dr. Gessner respond. That position is 90% grant funded. Okay.
That's the
So
answer.
10% is general fund. That's, which is $4,000.
Right. So grant funded, and we need to understand, grant funded doesn't mean free money, that if we don't spend it, we lose it. Grant funded means it's grant money we already receive, we've been receiving every single year, and we spend it and allocate it. So if we are going to shift it to this, where are we shifting it from?
So this grant fund has a term. Okay, so what is the term on this? Is it year by year, or is it a?
Yeah,
what,
we get,
2 year, 3
we
year?
get them every year.
So you get it every year?
It's
You get this
31A we get every year, yeah. It's not a new,
So,
it's
so
not a
that,
new
what is
grant.
that saying? That is saying that you're getting the grant fund every year.
Right, we have, okay, so we have been getting it every year.
Right.
What do we spend our 31A money on? Where do we spend it? Where could it be spent? And if we now take it from where we're currently spending it and spend it on this, what's getting cut? It's grant money, yes, but it's not extra money.
My only question I asked was, and it didn't get answered, is what are the hours? What? That was the only question I have left. I mean, it's a job. Do they report to work at 2:00 in the afternoon and go home at 10? Do they report to work at noon and go home at 8? It's just a question. Okay, you're nodding yes, but what is the answer? I mean, I'm sorry?
Can't believe this is America?
I can't believe this is America. We'd have to find an applicant first to have that conversation. My guess is it's going to have to be flexed. I mean, there's going to have to be time spent at the high school with the attendance piece. My guess is it's 10 to 6 to cover our afternoon. To answer the question about whether or not it's somebody answering the phone, it's more than that. We need somebody to organize and control and oversee our after-school programming, which none of us have the opportunity to do right now. So to answer the question, I'm thinking 10 to 6 would be my first original thought. We have to find the applicant first to see how that's going to work. It might be 12 to 8, and we have to look at all of our after-school programming. What do we have? Like, we have swimming going on. Swimming may be going on until 7 or 8 o'clock at night. So there might be nights that it's 12 to 8. There might be days it's 10 to 6. We have to be somewhat flexible because this is a position that I think is going to be difficult to fill, but I don't think it's going to be impossible. So.
So when we find the applicant, have we looked at what our needs are? Because if we look at our needs, and we know, here's the hours that need to be covered. So are we going to tell the applicant, here's the hours we need covered? Or are we waiting to find the applicant to see what their availability is and then?
So I feel like I just answered that. I'm both. I
Right,
mean, I
so
want to
you said
find
we
an
have to-
applicant that originally would be 10 to 6. But that applicant might say, well, I'm good 10 to 6 Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Your needs are till 6:30 or 5:30 on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. But on Tuesday, your needs might be till 8 o'clock at night. So I'll have to flex my schedule.
Okay.
So it's both. I mean, the answer
So
is
they
both.
will fit our needs?
That's where.
They will
Okay,
fit our
all right.
needs, correct.
And then the other thing is, what component, and this is genuine, what component, because I know our after-school programs, whoever's running them, teachers are paid a stipend for it, or there's Bright Futures, or there's, Bible Club, name the after-school program. But currently, there are structures for all of them where, students sign in and out, and whoever is in charge of that program is actually receiving compensation to oversee it and make sure students are there, the right person picks them up. So when you say, like, oversee all our after-school programming, what does that entail that's not currently covered?
Well, I think it's the coordination of everything, making sure that if a teacher wants to do something after school that's not already there, having that one person that they can go to and say, I'd like to start this program, and I want to know that I'm covered as far as how do I get it out there? How do I promote it? How do these things, it's almost like the old days, and I don't want to go back to the old days, a community ed supervisor, somebody that oversaw community education, which was always after-school activities. We're not calling this community ed supervisor, but in my mind, it's very much like that. They're developing and helping to develop programming for our kids. If our kids are involved in after-school programs, they're less likely to be involved in anything else that doesn't involve academics or being a better human. So that would be my original thought. I mean, there's a lot on there about feeding our kids. You have a great need of feeding our kids. We applied for programming last year that we didn't do. So on that, in that job description, you will see snack time, meal time. Yes, they will have to work with food service to make sure our kids are getting fed. If there's a meal that's to be provided, I want our kids fed, period. We don't have anybody doing that. We don't. We have staff who oversee those things, but I can't expect that staff to reach out to Chartwells, and Chartwells have 15 or 20 different people to organize food for. Should be one person organizing that for all the locations, and that's in conjunction with Chartwells. That's a big piece for me on there. Our kids
Yeah.
need to be fed,
That
period.
should be Chartwells, like.
It is gonna be
We're a
Chartwells, but it's gonna be
CEP
Chartwells
district, they
in
should be
conjunction with
applying,
us.
yeah. And
Absolutely.
then making sure, and then their employees should be serving our kids.
Absolutely. I totally agree.
But they have to get the information on how many it's gonna be there. I think that's what the key is making sure that we have that lead person that is coordinating that and being able to give the food counts to Chartwell. They're gonna do the feeding, but just to make sure, because like you said, I'm running an after-school program and I'm trying to make sure I got my tutoring class going, but I also have to call mom and make sure mom is there. If you have that person that can float and be the essential contact, that can reach out to you as the instructor and text you and say, hey, we need to make sure because little Johnny's mom is picking them up early. I want to be able to get that to you versus it going to the office call, phone and no one's answering it. We know how it is at the end of the day. The bell rings and no one answers a phone.
And it's really not so much the end of the day, it's at the end of the program. When the parent calls and either can't get a hold of whoever's in charge of that program, they need a number that they can get a hold of somebody, that somebody can either drive the facility or can contact the facility and say, Johnny's not on the bus, Johnny didn't get home. We need to have that because right now, we don't have that. And if I'm a teacher, I'm not giving out my personal cell phone number. And if I'm not in my classroom doing the organization or working with kids, I'm not going to be in there to answer the phone. And nobody's in the office to answer the phone. We need somebody that's going to oversee that programming. And then they need some help at the high school as well.
So they're helping create new after-school programming, is that what you said?
That would be my vision of the candidate, absolutely.
Is that part of a job duty, or is that something that you're just wanting to develop that too? Because that would be great, okay.
Madam President.
Yes, trustee Kennard.
Real quick question. No, well, not a question, it was just, just a suggestion. Because we just learned that this person would require some flexibility and flex time in the schedule. So when I glanced through the job description, I didn't see that. And if I was applying for it or anyone, I would like to, it would be advantageous to know that I would have to consider that this position is flexible. It needs to have, flex time or whatever. So that person, you might want to add it to the description or I know it probably come out in the interviewing or whatever, but, you know, that would have been a great thing that you could put in here or
So that's
say.
a great point, and I contemplated putting that in there. I typically don't put that in the job description because that opens a can of worms, right? I don't want somebody that says, well, I'm good from 8 to 10 in the morning, because flexibility could mean a lot of things to a lot of different people. So I'm the primary contact
That's
when
a
I'm
good
reaching
point.
out to these candidates. Part of my conversation with them is it's second shift, if you will, with the potential flexibility from 10 to 6 or 12 to 8, based on our needs. If I put flexibility of scheduling in there,
flex
you
schedule.
have an at-home person who's saying, well, I could go 8 to
Right.
10 and then take a couple hours off and then go, 10,
That's a good
whatever,
point.
2 to 12 to 4, whatever the thought process. So I'm the primary contact for that person. When I reach out, it's not going to be, and it hasn't been, in positions like this, it hasn't been an administrative assistant. I reach out and I give the full-blown vision of what I think that job looks like, and then I say to them, is this something that you're interested in? I met with a candidate the other day, called them on the phone. They came in, and not about this position, different position. And after having a lengthy conversation, they said, you know what? After our 2 conversations, one on the phone and one in person, I might be interested in the position. So it's always advantageous
Yeah.
for me not to put it in there because I don't want anybody to they come in and they go, well, you said flexible. So on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I think I could do this many hours so I kind of go back and forth on that. So I'd rather have that
Well, that's-
conversation.
Use your discretion.
Yeah, flexible could mean you're just happy to have me whenever I show up.
Thank you, Madam VP.
Thank you, Madam President. I just want to confirm this person is going to be helping with snack, homework, and doing attendance, because that's a lot of moving pieces for one person to do.
So it's not so much that they're going to be helping do those things, it's helping to coordinate those things. So the big thing for me is helping coordinate after-school programming, helping to coordinate the foods. I heard very loud and clear from several board members that feeding our kids after school, and I agree with that. We've got to have somebody that coordinates. It can't be Brian Eid from Chartwells. He doesn't work in the afternoon. He has staff that works in the afternoon, but he's not around. We need somebody in that capacity that can work with the food service staff afterwards to coordinate those benefits for our kiddos. So yes, so they're not necessarily going to be tutoring kids. They're going to be working with the staff to help tutor those kids, to organize that program.
Okay, and they're going to be planning and implementing a weekly curriculum? Is that accurate?
Yes, and that's part of the vision that we were talking about before. It's part of looking forward and helping to develop programming. I call it curriculum. I mean, I don't know what else. Programming, if I say curriculum, it's somebody in education that kind of knows what that looks like. So that's why I call it curriculum instead of programmatic planning, because that could mean a lot of things to a lot of people, so.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Madam President, I think that whoever this candidate is, they're gonna have to be a see a need, fill a need person, because dealing with attendance, and I know firsthand, we have an attendance liaison, but she does everything. You're covering lunches, so it looks good, but you just never know what the day is gonna entail. But I think this person will hopefully, collaborate with it. They'll know, like, oh, little Johnny's mom, or they'll start to say, okay, I know he's in chess or whatever. So I just feel like the attendance part of it is going to be huge. I honestly don't think they'll be able to get to a lot of the things because they may have their laptop like, okay, well, let me check these voicemails and help the attendance liaisons or the secretaries to just kind of get that attendance piece. And this is just from somebody that kind of, I do it, I see it, and
Are you interested, or you know something?
I wish I could.
Teasing, I'm
I'm
teasing.
just, but yeah, I mean, I feel like it is something that's needed. I think hone into what they really are going to do, because I think the attendance piece is a huge part of it. And then also maybe just their little laptop and their knowing what's going on after school will be a big part of it, but.
So I think to your point, you got to throw everything in the kitchen sink at a job description because you don't know how you're going to hone in on that person's skills. So obviously I threw everything in the kitchen sink at this job description, and then always there's that other duties as assigned.
There's
piece in there.
somebody out there that will be able to know how to make a snack, answer a phone, and also know little
I
Johnny is in chess
Totally
club.
agree. I totally agree.
Exactly. Multitasking. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can we do a roll call vote, please?
I'll just put on here. Davis,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Laster,
Yes.
Hiles, no. McCarthy,
Yes.
Bernard,
Yes.
Wester,
Yes.
motion carries.
Thank you. Next on the agenda This is a report of the Director of Operations, Facilities, and Maintenance, Mr. Bill Garland.
Good evening, Board.
Well, good evening, Mr. Garland. How are you?
Doing well. So I wanted to give you a little update on board, possibly buying a new board table. Just want to tell you that the three estimates that we've looked at, all of them give us a similar board table to this size. This one here, and it has a lot to do with this fact, egress. We have to have proper egress. That means that if Miss Evans falls down, that Trustee McCarthy can go and get some help. You have to be able to leave the building in a proper way, leave behind the board table. So this board table here, the size of it, I wrote all these down, is 216 by 30 by 29. This table. 216, meaning the length of it is 216, 30 deep by 29 high. The next board table that we looked at, these are high-level estimates because they would actually have to come out and field measure. They would have to field measure, get the egresses, and it could change. There was one from ISCG that we received. It was 186/60 by 29, but with a different configuration. They also sent us a secondary one that was 221/30 by 29 with a more of a crown configuration. And then there was Office Anything, which theirs is basically tables that you bring in, you set, and that's it. So the pricings vary from ISCG and let me just say this is to purchase only the table. This is not installation, this is not electrical hookup, this is not sound hookup. So whatever this is, you're gonna have to add probably somewhere around $5,000 to the price. All the electrical and the sound equipment is in the floor, so that means we'd have to reconfigure carpeting possibly. So the ISCG, and this is a high level, they haven't given us a firm quote, was $11,125. The secondary one, the one that's more of a U shape, was about $6,500, but it looks very, very cheap. The one from Office Anything is $10,125. The Office Anything,
Those are just.
there's those Office Anything are 6 foot, yes, 6 foot, 6 foot, 6 foot, which is basically what this is. It's 6 foot, 6 foot, 6 foot.
How much was this?
That one is this one? Originally, because it came with, I believe,
stuff.
the microphones in that, it was somewhere around 14,000.
Is it possible to buy an extension for each section? To buy an additional,
Like a
yeah,
spacer
add
type
another space in between each. We just need some space.
Like our first table had.
Yeah.
What was the size of that first table? I remember we couldn't get, because I sat down there and I couldn't get out that way.
Our greatest concern in altering this at all would be if we were to have a board member who was handicapped. And
That's
they
that
needed a
ramp.
wheelchair ramp to be able to get free access around everywhere. This configuration was designed with that in mind, that they would even be able to come up to the front here if they needed to.
Well, we do have a ramp, though.
Yes,
back there.
the ramp isn't the issue, it's the egress behind and around you all. It has to have proper egress, especially in case of a fire, or heaven forbid, something worse than that.
Well, again, if there were extensions that we could just wing this out more this way, I mean, this is a terrible setup.
Well, it's the space. It truly is, it is the space. So,
Because I remember once upon a time with the other table, we used to have 7 board members, a superintendent, a curriculum director, a finance director, and an HR director.
and you
It
were
went
out
all the
of
way
code.
to the, right,
Yeah,
and it went all the way
Not
to the-
code compliant.
I mean, it's nice when we hold our meetings at our schools because we're spread out. We're in there in our schools. We're hearing more about what's going on in the district. So, I mean, even meeting in the schools would give us space and give us a better pulse. That may not be a bad idea to consider.
Well, you will be having some wonderful upgrades in the auditorium very soon with an incredible sound system. So that may be something
Well,
the
if we
board
do
may
that,
continue.
Mr. Garland, we can buy chicken every meet. That's $11,000 worth of chicken. I'm just saying. We got all these beautiful schools to go to.
I'll say this, that the total cost for this project by the time we're done will be all of $20,000 if we were to alter this. I mean, but even if we brought in something and we were able to extend it, which I then think we're out of code compliance, we have to change the electrical, because if you look under, there's places for you guys to plug in, so your computers can be plugged in, your phones can be plugged in. It's not an easy fix.
Mr. Garland,
Yes.
if I recalled, a couple of years ago, you came before the board, and one of the things in the plan, I think it was, we were talking about sinking fund, and you were talking about perhaps moving the board meetings to the high school.
I remember talking about that.
Okay, so is that still something that's in the plan, or did that drop? Because within the
don't
last
think
year or
that
so,
bill
it was,
decision-
no, it's not a bill, but what I'm
Yeah.
saying is, we did have that conversation where, when they did those upgrades in that auditorium, that this issue right here was part of the conversation, and they were gonna get back, you guys were gonna get back with us. I know we had several conversations on that, so I don't know what happened. And that's what
I
I'm
think
asking.
COVID happened.
No, it was after COVID. It was after COVID we had these conversations about, because we're talking
will
about
the auditorium
redoing the
be finished?
auditorium.
Auditorium looks like, we started today, demo started today, decommissioning. The 27th, the day after, the Monday after the holiday, Thanksgiving, they'll begin the lighting decommission, and our sound panels will be the final part. They're really having a lot of trouble matching our wonderful school colors. So they're a little behind in their processing. But that's a project that I think this district is going to truly appreciate.
And what's the tentative, like, guesstimate for end?
End of the year, opening hopefully
Okay.
sometime mid-January
Okay, thank you.
possibly for MLK Day if we have that
That would be
celebration.
nice.
So down in the front,
Yeah, we'll be our auditorium or 275, which was gonna.
no, we weren't.
Thank you.
All right, thank you for it.
Next, we have our report of the Finance Department. Dr. Maria Gitzinger, please.
It's Gistinger. Yes, yes, yes.
Got the S.
Don't worry, nobody gets it right.
I was about to say, I thought
Gistinger. G.I. Stinger. Stinger. Okay, so, yes, yes. So good evening, everyone. I come to you today with the October 31, 2023 financial statement. You heard from our auditors earlier that said you should be looking at this stuff monthly, right? So that was part of my commitment to the district, was to provide monthly financial statements so that you were able to compare the operations of the district on a regular basis. So if something's going strange, that you can see that much more quickly than waiting until the auditors show up. How's that? Better? Thank
you.
Okay, sorry, I'm short. So let's start with your general fund revenue. And again, I did not prepare the budget, but we had originally budgeted for $12,300,000 of property taxes. You have 100% summer tax collection. So you can see that we've collected more than what we budgeted for. We're already collecting $12,353,000. And so we get our property tax dollars early, which is a good thing because we get our state aid on the 20th of October. So we have a long time to go before we get any support from the state to run the district. So our property tax dollars fill that hole. And then under state sources, we've only collected 3 million so far because of the 18 we're projecting to collect because we only have one payment in October so far. Federal sources are mostly grants. We have just started the spending process in October, so you will see the collection of that increase in the future as well. And then as far as expenditures, nothing really noteworthy. You can see we're roughly, just eyeballing the percentage of where we're at, about a quarter of the way through the spending as far as where we've budgeted, and that's about typical for October 31st. And next, we move on to the cafeteria fund. It's the next page over, unless anybody had questions about the general fund. Yes.
When do we get property taxes?
So the collection period begins July 1, and the collection period should conclude by September 15th. After that, you're delinquent, but we do still get trickles of property taxes post-September 15th.
So we get it once a year?
No, we get, you do a 100% summer collection, but it goes through the summer.
Okay,
The collection period goes through the summer,
and we get paid,
2 times a month, on the 15th and the 30th.
that's what, okay. Thank
So
you.
they collect up, the municipality collects up all of our tax dollars and remits them to us twice a month through the summer.
Okay, okay.
Any other questions about the general fund? Okay, so we move on to the cafeteria fund. Nothing really noteworthy there. Just like all the other funds, we're just really getting started. And this is part of the reason why I'm not super crazy about preparing a financial statement in September, because there's not a lot to report on. There's really not a lot going on in the summer as far as the district's activities are concerned. And then next is our sinking fund. And again, our property tax collection is very strong in the summer because we do collect those property taxes as well. The board did not approve a budget for the sinking fund. It's not a requirement, though I like the board to approve a budget for every fund. So going forward, I'll be presenting a budget for the sinking fund as well. And that's why you don't see a budget in the sinking fund. And also too, when the budget was projected, we thought we would end with $1.1 million of sinking fund equity, but as you know, we have 0 fund equity in our sinking fund from the auditor's presentation. Next is our debt service fund. We've collected $9.3 million of taxes. We have one debt payment that is made on October. It's due November 1st, but we pay it a few days early. That's why you see it showing up on the October 31 financial. Just one payment of interest. We pay the other payment in May, as well as the principal payment as well. So not a lot of activity in your debt fund yet either, other than that one principal, or that one interest payment. And that concludes the review of your financial statements.
What is the projected date? Because I know we're on track to pay that debt off early. What is the projected date? Do you remember? I mean, if you don't, it's okay.
You have a series of debt. You have 3 of them, and you have a debt schedule. When you say pay it off early, we're not paying our debt earlier than what the schedule is required. It's
Okay.
just that we're coming to the end of our debt payment for one particular debt levy.
Does this include our bonds?
This is the payment of your bonds.
Right,
So
okay.
this is the paying back of the borrowing that has occurred from 1998 or whenever you
Right.
last had your bond issue.
So I know, and I don't remember when we had, and I forget the name of the company, when he presented and we saw that chart and we saw that the bonds had to be paid off by, is it 20?
Part of our audit.
28, yeah. But we were,
Note in your.
yeah,
audit
but we're on track to actually pay that off sooner.
It's news to me.
I'll look back at that presentation he gave.
Is that Baker Tilly?
Yes, thank you, that was the name, yes. My other question is the athletic budget, athletics. So, one thing I know, so for last school year, the board was intentional about increasing the budget, and I know that for this year, a lesser amount was budgeted for athletics. how is the athletic budget then divided up amongst all athletics? Is it by building, by sport?
I didn't prepare the budget, so I can't answer that.
Okay. Is that something we can look at when we do the amendment and you give us some recommendations so that there's not a team that comes along later and, oh, sorry, the budget's gone?
Sure.
Thank you.
Do we have any other questions?
And I'm sure you knew I was coming with this one. Regarding the sinking fund, what is the time frame to pay back the general fund from the sinking fund? When will we see that replenish our general fund?
I'm thinking that a considerable amount of what was transferred at the end of 22-23 school year will be paid back during the 23-24 school year.
And we have no issues paying that back under a different school year?
No, because if we didn't pay it, if we didn't need it by the end of last school year, it wouldn't have occurred.
Okay,
Right,
and-
so why would we have borrowed if we could have paid it back in the same year?
Okay, and so then when we create our sinking fund budget, we will then know, approval by approval. And hopefully with the new ops manager, we will know what we're working on, and those total costs associated with it will be absolutely directed to the right project, is what we're looking at, correct? That's why we want an ops director, correct? Okay, yeah, so that was my main concern, is that we get the 2 million back into general fund to build our fund balance back up.
Sure.
And then we get, hopefully we have some left to do something with the sinking fund for next year.
In 24-25.
Right, thank you.
So are you saying we're not planning any projects for 23, 24 from sinking fund?
To date, you've already spent $2 million in your
Right.
sinking fund.
Of the 3.4, but we also use part of our debt payment comes from sinking fund. So we need to, okay.
It's tight.
We put, yeah, I mean, but it's good to know, so that, okay.
Any other
Madam
questions?
Yes, Madam President. So in the Finance Committee, the question that we did ask was, with the projects that's already on the table, which projects are not going to be done this year? So all of them. So what was the difference in terms of what was and was not? And, and you did answer that when you were saying that there were some projects that are going to be put on hold. That was the answer to that. So I just want the board to know that we did ask that question.
Spending freeze.
So there's going to be a freeze,
On the sinking
sort of,
fund.
on the sinking fund.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you so much. Next on the agenda is a report of the board subcommittees.
Madam President, the policy committee met, and we will have new information coming before the board for review and approval. I do not have a ETA on it, but it will be soon.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yes, I have a question, or I have a comment. The Properties Committee, we would like, I'm sorry, did I cut somebody off? No, that's Portia. We are going to, don't you dare. We are going to request to have a properties meeting. Trustee Kennard and I have talked about this, and we feel we need to just meet and talk about everything going on. And when did you have your policy committee meeting? Because we weren't notified of it, were we?
I invited everyone, but I will give you a date and go back to my notes.
That's fine. I just didn't see it in my emails, that's all. So if I overlooked it, I apologize.
It was on Monday, the 30th.
It was the 30th?
It was October 30th. It was a Monday,
All right,
October
thank you.
30th. Anyone else?
No, just briefly, that the Finance Committee did meet, and we just reviewed the information that was presented to us today. And we did establish the fact that we will be meeting more regular prior to the board meetings. We will be meeting once a month, unless something comes up urgent. Before that, we'll do that. I think, was that something else, Portia? Yeah, she covered everything, yes.
Next on the agenda is the report of the board president. I just want to thank everyone for coming out tonight. I wanted to thank Mr. Berlin, he's gone already, for our audit report. Dr. Gitzinger for Gitzinger for our finance department report. I also want to thank Wendy. They're gone already for the wonderful report on RVLC. It was so good to hear our teachers that go out after hours. She went after hours, she said, to help this young lady to, to become acclimated. It's so good to hear and see her improvement over the time frame. I just want to commend her for going the extra mile, as all of our staff do, but really for going the extra mile for our student. Last week, we were at the MASB. It was a lot of good information. I really loved our keynote speaker on Saturday morning. He was dynamic. Young man, you never would have thought he was there to be the presenter because he was up on stage with his DJ equipment and things of that nature. But he gave us a different way of looking and meeting people where they are, because you never know what a person is or what he or she does just by their appearance. And he kind of intertwined the music with playing the violin. And you never would have thought you would hear some rap or something like that intertwined with the violin. He was very dynamic and just helping us to see people where they are and making sure that we take those things into consideration. You can't always judge the book by the cover. I just gave a really quick synopsis, but it was very, very good. Classes I went to were good. It's just always good to go and meet other board members in other areas just to hear and see and learn more. So I had a lot of takeaways from it. It was very good information. And like I say, thank you, Dr. Edmondson, for your leadership, your vision. Thank you to the staff for doing a great job, community for coming out and supporting us. And like we said, we're going to get these study sessions together so that we can bring the community together so that we can move our district forward in the right way, so we can ask those questions, and it's not just the board asking the questions, especially with the property, the real estate, to make sure, because it would be affecting a lot of families over there to bring that in. My first thing was, why aren't we selling the houses? Why are we going to rent them? Why is the first phase rental? So it's a lot of questions that we can ask to make sure that we're doing the best thing, not only for the school, but the community as a whole. Trustee Piles, Secretary Piles.
I didn't have any questions.
Nothing.
Oh, are we at that? I thought you had the right question.
I'm trying to.
Okay, so, I know we had a safety and security audit conducted, I think around March, and we received the report in April, and have requested that we have a closed session meeting to discuss those concerns and needs that were addressed regarding the safety and security of our staff, students, in our buildings. I'm again requesting that we do that soon. I'm seeing our audit today that we left $1,748,046 on the table. We can still spend it, but that is for safety, security, and the mental health of our students. We don't have a plan for that. If we're not addressing the stuff that we were told, here's where you're not safe. Anything that we're doing academically, everything else is going to be compromised to some extent if our students and staff aren't safe. That's it for me. I'll send a follow-up email for the information requested regarding the transportation costs and the insurance quotes or whatever we're paying. And then the other thing is the same meeting that we had the motion to get the insurance quotes, we also had a motion to put an RFP out for HVAC. And so if we can just get the updates on what came back from that.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Laster.
I just want to thank everybody for coming out, and I really enjoyed the RVLC presentation. It was good I definitely want to go visit and meet the people, and get more people involved. I want to sign my dad up. He need to go. But, no, seriously, it's investing back in our people, because the 73-year-old, you're never too old or too young. I'm sorry, not to say you're old at that age, because it's a blessing. But last thing, I just want to thank Dr. Edmondson for the informational parent attendance seminars. I don't know what it was called, but I did attend both. It was sad to see that the seats weren't filled, the Zoom wasn't filled, but you did your job. You presented like there was 1,000 people in the room. You were engaged with the parents that were there, and it was good to hear the stories of the 4 that were there that opened and shared their experiences and what they deal with, to hear the people in the community, our parents. So I'm excited. I support you with it. I'm glad to have the communication out there, and thank you.
Get ready. 283 absences today. Oh, yeah, we're fine. It's Monday. What do you expect? I told you it's higher on Monday. It's 283 today. Tomorrow to dip down to 212. Just saying.
Now, can I ask how the high school numbers are with that? So if first hour is absent, is that counted as an absence? All day. Or, you know what I'm saying? So is it just 1 hour? Do they?
Well, if they don't put in anything by 10 o'clock, then that's when I get it. That's what will go out at 10
Right.
o'clock as absent,
Okay.
because they've missed.
But if they come in for second hour, if
Not
they're
absent.
there?
They're
Not
there.
absent. Okay, that's what I wanted to know.
Are we still able to, are the Google Sheets, are we still able to access them daily and check that? Remember how you had the Google Sheets for attendance?
Oh, yeah.
No, it was like each day it was being added. Is that something
That's for
that we can
count day.
still?
That was count day.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I don't. So no, I don't do that
Okay.
anymore.
Trustee Kennard.
Oh, no, I'll just say that thank everyone for coming, and the information that was provided to us today pertaining to our adult education, RVLVC, great work. I've attended those sessions at the end of the year, and it was very well attended by the families of those students who accomplished those goals. When I just want to make a statement, and that's pertaining to, as I went through the budget, not the budget, the audit. And throughout the audit, it stated that the differentiation between the processes with the finance has been consistent in our district, where the practices and policy and administration, those things are not being done. And so that's a long thing that needs to be handled when we move forward with hiring someone in that position. And so one of the things, and I know Dr. Gissner Gissner, did I say Gissner? You know what, Dr. G? Okay, how about that? And I can agree on this, is that one of the basic, very basic requirements when a person comes into a position such as this and the salary that we're paying, that the first thing when they're coming to us, if they don't ask you for the 2 basic things, and that is, what is your budget and what is your audit actions? If they don't ask you that, they shouldn't be coming through the door. We should not be accepting them through our door, because those are basic things that anyone at that level, working for an organization. And so throughout this audit, and I looked back several years back, and this action item has been a thorn for this district. And this board, we need to look at this. We need to take it very seriously whenever someone comes before us and take this next position as our finance director. appalling, and I'm saying this to our superintendent, the administrator that we're responsible for, and to the people who are reporting to in this position to look very carefully, because this district we've had several people coming in, walking in and through I can do this, I can show you this, and I'm doing this, and we're walking and seeing the same action item. Okay, and so when I looked at this, and I said, we need to do better, and if it starts here with this board, we need to take and look at the responsibility and impose this should be done when we hire the next person for this position. We cannot continue to operate like this in close to a 6% general fund balance. So that's what I wanted to say, and I hope that we can come together in making sure that we're helping our superintendent and those administrators when this decision is brought before us. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Evans.
Thank you. Just repeat, thank you everyone for coming out, doing the presentations. It's very, very informational. Our VLC, phenomenal numbers, wonderful. At the MASB conference, I ran into Chartwells. They are so excited to be back. They said that the first day when they walked in, they were talking to the staff members, and it's like, okay, you have to fill out your employment papers. No, I've got to do my job. I'll go fill out new employment papers when I get time. I'm here to do my job. Well, you know, do you want, no, it doesn't matter. I have my job to do. They were so excited to be back, loved the staff, everything, and they said they had no glitches. Moving forward, they had people going out and picking up food because it was such a short turnaround. So they had people going to the supply companies and picking up the supplies for the first 2 or 3 days. But they are excited to be back. So welcome back, Chartwells. Also, during my budget class, it was stated that some of the issues with motions and not in general is that a lot of times just because the general ledger number might be on there, it's not clear what the general ledger number definition is. But as we set our goals, motions should include the goal that it's associated to for our district. So if we have safety and a motion comes before us for the cover of the windows or something, then it should say associated to goal number, blah, 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 so that we know we're working toward our goals, right? And spending toward our goals that we have stated. So I think that that is a good thing to in the future, after our goals are set, that we include that along with the general ledger number in the rationale, so we're all knowledgeable. And Dr. Edmondson, that leads to you being able to just say, hey, look, I'm working toward this goal, right? And it's all visible. And that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Treasurer Davis. Thank you. VP.
Eagle Nation, as always, thank you for all that you do. I just have one request. I would like an update on our CTE programming, more specifically health occupation, as it keeps coming up in my life. People keep asking me about it, and I said that I would ask. So, thank you. That's it.
Dr. Emerson. Motion to adjourn.
Support.
8:34. Good night.